Okay. Welcome to the Ars Electronica Center here in Linz. Welcome to the beginning of what is probably the most or the second most important week in the annual cycle of Ars Electronica. Of course, the most important is the Ars Electronica Festival that will take place this year in September, and that's why we're here together. The second most important is really this week because we start with the announcement of this year's festival topic and a wonderful array of international collaboration partners, which are the guarantee that this year's festival will be exciting, as successful as all the other festivals in our long history. And just a little spoiler, at the end of the week we start with our jury sessions of the annual Ars Electronica, which is the very important main pillar, of course, of many festival programs. The topic this year is who owns the truth. I think it's pretty obvious what are the reasons behind this topic, behind this theme, what we are looking for. But more about this after my colleague Christel Bauer, who is leading the whole program development of our festival. After she will introduce us not to the details of the program yet, of course, this would be too early, but in particular to do very important things. Where is Ars Electronica going to happen this year, and who are our partners? And we have a video in between.
Many of you will recognize the building again. It is Post City, and you can imagine after we finally said goodbye in 2019 to this spectacular building, we were more than happily surprised that when we went scouting through the city of Linz for new venues, the Post AG thankfully offered us Post City again to host this year's main festival location in this beautiful building. And we will reach out again through all those 80,000 square meters that we have at hand. We will again welcome you in the bunkers of the Post City, in the basement, in the postal distribution areas, in the former archive spaces, to change them into exhibition spaces and to create surprising encounters for you. The Gleishalle, the area where the train used to come in, have somehow been made as a performance venue. And here we are thrilled to say that the Bruckner Orchestra, under the direction of Markus Poschner, will again perform the big concert night this year. And especially then also the upper area, the welcoming area, will be free for everyone to access without a ticket, even at least in parts of the programs. And you can then encounter first projects, first partnerships, to visit then further and go deeper into the building itself. It will be a spectacular festival, it will be a spectacular venue, so don't miss it. But besides the 80,000 square meters of Post City, which is of course the main festival location, we will reach out to several other destinations and venues within the city. The festival mile will be along the Landstraße through downtown Linz, and bring us to venues such as the main cathedral in Linz, but also, of course, the Art University on the main square, who is, by the way, celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. We will encounter artists from Latin America in the Lentus Contemporary Arts Museum, and then visit, of course, Salzamt, cross the bridge to the Ars Electronica Center, the Stadtwerkstatt, and also the Anton Bruckner Private University, who is focusing again on digital sound art and music programs. In all those venues, you will encounter exhibitions, concerts, performances, workshops, conferences. I'm not going to go into detail yet. We need to save something for the highlight press conference in August. But what I'm going to do is I will share a couple of partners and partner organizations who are helping us to develop this incredible festival program. And by the way, who I also want to mention is, of course, the JKU. They are not going to be part of the venues this year, but they are a core partner in producing programs together with us. This year's cooperations partners come, for example, from art and culture and include such illustrious names as the Museo Nacional del Prado and the Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia. Both are based in Madrid. The Grand Palais Immersive in Paris, as well as the Salzburger Festspiele and the Biennale de Musica Venezia. Furthermore, we also have capitals of culture, especially the capital of culture 2024, Bad Ischl, but also the capital of culture 2026, Oulu in Finland, who are going to be part of the program. Throughout the year, we have already worked with several cultural and art organizations in order to develop commissioned projects. And some of them are the Cisnero Fontanals Art Foundations, where we are commissioning Latin American artists to create new projects, which you will encounter in Lentos. But also the Art Council Korea, we are creating together a curatorial residency program, and the curator will be with us throughout the summer. As well as the Swiss Art Council Pro Helvetia in Zurich. Here we have a special new production grant for Swiss artists, and the Institut Ramon Llull, based in Barcelona. With them, we are together organizing an art science residency. The outcomes will be presented in September. And last but not least, we work, of course, also another year, thankfully, with the Chilean Foreign and Cultural Ministry in order to invite Chilean artists to be part of this year's festival. We, of course, will also continue this wonderful initiative that has started in 2002 in collaboration with the Art University Linz, the Ars Electronica campus, inviting international universities to actively participate in the festival, to bring their students, to bring their professors and their projects, to present them within the program. We will have around 30 universities participating again, on the one side in Post City in the campus exhibition, and on the other side at the Art University. And this will create a bridge between the universities and, of course, between the festival. And some of those in universities are with, of course, a focus on the Taipei National University of Arts. And in addition, we will have the University of Auckland, we will have the Art Institute Chicago, the Korean National University of Arts, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, the University of Austral in Chile, but also the Vilnius Academy of Arts and the whole Hexagram network from Canada, from Montreal, Canada. It's not only the education institutions that have high interest in presenting their projects within the festival, but it is also especially our European partners that year after year contribute amazing projects to the program. And a huge collaboration has been formed around the European network, especially called EIT, Culture and Creativity, initiated by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. Only this initiative alone brings together 60 institutions from 15 European countries. One of them is Ars Electronica, and the first results around the program called Next Renaissance will be presented in Linz. Also on display will be projects from the European Media Arts Festival, and together with VAG in Amsterdam, we will create an exhibition under the European initiative More Than Planet that will be presented in Post City. And we have a very special new network, the European Digital Deal Network, that will host workshops and other programs in Linz. The network is initiated by Ars Electronica together with 12 European partners. And especially a huge collaboration platform has been formed around the prestigious Prix Ars Electronica, the STARTS Prize, the European Commission's Grand Prize for Innovation at the Interface of Art, Technology and Science. You might have already encountered, as we are hosting it already since 2016. And it's especially joined by an important and highly endowed award called the European Union Prize for Citizen Science, as well as Klasse Lernen via Digital in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Science and Research and the ÖRD, sorry. The Digital Humanity Prize is offered also for the third time already with the Ministry for European and International Affairs, whom we are also hosting with the State of the Artist initiative. And last but not least, we have to announce, I'm sorry, it is a huge network and you need to bear with us. I mean, imagine all the work that goes into organizing and bringing this network together. But this new award for culture and industry, we will launch very soon, but we already want to announce it. It's together with Caltech Association, an association based in Vienna and will be directed at culture and industry. Now we've heard about a lot of art, culture, education and scientific partner institutions that are joining the festivals, and by no all means I have not mentioned all of them yet. But we of course have also a great international appeal for innovators from business and industry. And this year's partners who are actively participating in the festival, not just coming and visiting, but really contributing to the program, is one of the largest marketing firms, Hakuhodo Inc. from Tokyo, but also Nikkei, the major Japanese business newspaper, the Deutsche Telekom, the German Telekom, and the Hyundai Motor Group from Korea. And of course, we'd like to thank our partners here from Austria, the city of Linz, the Federal Ministry of Arts and Culture, Public Services and Sports, and the country of Upper Austria, who make a large part of this program possible. But it's not only about partnerships, it is about the team who in the end is behind producing and organizing all this program. And here especially I want to mention Martin Honzig, Veronika Liebel and Karl Schmiedinger as the heads and directors of the festival, but also of course the rest of the team who is actively already working on creating and producing a wonderful festival for you. So with those words, I want to give back to Gerfried. Please mention the partners I've forgotten and share a bit about the festival theme, which is why we are here today.
Yes, thank you very much for this. I'm trying to get my machine online. Maybe just a moment. I could have done this before, but
you were so excited by all those partners.
And we are going back, yes. Yeah, okay, so thanks again for this ordeal of really going through this big list of partners. This was very important for us in the preparation for this press announcements, because I think it's not just a huge number which will grow anyway towards the festival, but also the really exciting broad variety and seeing what kind of institutions are now interested in really exploring together with Ars Electronica how this digital transformation is actually really creating a strong and lasting impact on our society, on the individual areas of their work, on our businesses, on our culture in general. This is, I think, is a very good moment, or it's something where we really see how relevant the very early idea of Ars Electronica, which, as most of you I hope know, started already in 1979, so more than 40 years ago, how relevant this festival is and how relevant, so to say, the formula, the basic formula of Ars Electronica still is in our days. And the formula is art, technology and society. And it's all about, of course, to utilize the great perspectives, the inside view, the critical analysis of artists, of people who work in the arts, who are content creators, to utilize this to better understand this process of transformation. But I think what Ars Electronica made so successful in all these decades, as we actually really can say, is that we always focused on also, let's say, the other way around. To investigate, to show and to support how artists also with their work, with their presence in our society, can contribute to the very way of how technology is shaping our society and our culture. And I think this is, of course, the most important thing nowadays. How can we actually really lead to some participation? I think a very important topic this year will be that it's no longer enough just to talk about the ethics of AI. The issues of a social contract is becoming much more important. So one of the things that we are trying to push in our discussions this year is how can we move on from digital humanism? And of course, no doubt, the very important impact and necessity to discuss ethics of technology, ethics of science. But how can we move on to the really pressing social issues? And maybe from a digital humanism, we need to go to something, at least in our discussions, in our observations, to something like a digital socialism. The idea that commonwealth, the common goods, something like the, let's say, the good old social contract theory needs to be rethought and rewritten in our days, because what we are witnessing, and this is a very important part, of course, of the festival topic this year, Who Owns the Truth, is not just, this avalanche of transformations and new realities that have been introduced in our lives, in our society, in our businesses, with the really breathtaking advantages and developments in machine learning and the so-called artificial intelligences. But we see that this very special situation of our days, what is often referred to as the crisis of the Western world, is not so much just depending on, of course, all the issues and the topics that we know and that are super pressing, like the war in the Ukraine, like the really big problems, of course, with the prices of energy and, of course, the big looming catastrophe of the climate change. But we see an erosion of something that was the core of Western identity for hundreds of years, we have to say. And this is authority of interpretation. And to recognize that we, to say it in a kind of provocative short version, that we need to start to deal with the very fact that truth has to be considered as a plural. There is no longer the truth. And of course, no longer should there be a single institution, whether a formation of states like the European Union or big countries and powerful countries like China or USA, or also nor one of these big platforms and industrial giants in the IT sector who is in control of the truth. Well, that would be the great vision, but we all know there is a very big difference in reality. We have an ownership of truth, an ownership of access to knowledge in a dimension that we never had before in human history. I mean, it's super exciting on the one side to be to be able to live in a period of time where, like never before, we are closer than ever before to this idea that we are really able to collect the whole wisdom of humanity. And I mean, you see my quotes, my quotes, my quotes. These are all very simple terms to express it. But nevertheless, I mean, imagine this billions and billions and billions of texts that are collected to train these large language models. I mean, this is power. This is an enormous wealth of intellectual knowledge. This is the condensed experience, knowledge and wisdom of thousands of years of humanity. And now we have this, and whoops, there is suddenly one little company, one guy who is in total control. More about all these things at the festival. It's very much about a journey. Christel mentioned the core theme. with Martin Honzig, Veronika Lieber and Karl Schmiedinger, our technical director. The team will grow throughout the months to several hundred people doing this. And one of the really interesting things every year, of course, is when we start this journey is what should be the main key image of this year's festival. And of course, we couldn't resist with this topic to try to do a festival image with AI programs. We made hundreds of images, of course, with all the available AI programs. And this was finally the winner in this competition. And I think it's cool because it really has a very small, simple prompt that was necessary. And we were very excited by this rendering of, so to say, two philosophers of a post-retro-futuristic science fiction vision or whatsoever. And what I really liked with this, of course, is having here two figures in this image that are basically as clueless as we are all together when we are confronted with these new realities of the AI programs, the large language models dominating our discussions in such a strong way. And I'm always a history guy, and the good thing is I'm not a historian, so I can be, totally vague, and I have not a big responsibility in dealing with such vague numbers, but it's a cool thing to consider that according not to ChatGPT but to Wikipedia, it's about 700,000 years ago that humans started to discover how to work with fire, 500,000 years, speech and all these things. I mean, we don't need to go through this. But the really interesting thing, of course, for now is this super acceleration that we had witnessed in the last years and even in the last months. I mean, it's really always, I think, worth to consider just the fact that it's only a little bit more than 4 months. This is, really, it's like 16 weeks only, or let's say a little bit more, 18 weeks, that ChatGPT has introduced. And within the first 5 days, it was able to gather 1 million users. And it's amazing when you go around, no matter where you are, immediately you get into discussions with people about AI and in particular about ChatGPT. And as I said already, I'm really super excited about the power that is behind programs and projects like ChatGPT, about the possibilities. I mean, it is really a wonderful achievement on the one side to see how much information and wisdom these systems could gather. But then on the other side, of course, it immediately gets super scary and frightening to see the amount of control that is behind this. And of course, also, I really recommend to go a little bit deeper and look at, who is this man who is basically responsible for this super success, who were the most successful strategists in leading a rather small team of super talented and engaged engineers and scientists to develop something like ChatGPT and now GPT-4 and all these kind of things. And when you read his article, his texts, I mean, it really gets quite interesting because he has theories that go deep into the topic, way beyond the classical areas of science, technology and business, totally into political dimension, and in particular in a new theory of a social contract. But a theory of a social contract that is no longer written and discussed by philosophers like we had, hundreds of years ago with Montesquieu and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who really started at the period even before the French Revolution. This discussion and the theory about the necessity to organize a contract within our societies to create a world that, at least in a certain way, could be called a just world. And we all know how difficult it was and how long it took until finally we got rid of this very strong unjust situations of feudalism and aristocracy and all these kind of things. And many revolutions had been necessary. Many wars have been fought in between. So how can we avoid that this very strong transition that we are facing right now, that is really equal to to what happened with the Industrial Revolution, that what happened when the steam engine was refined, not really invented, but refined and made commercially, so to say, useful by James Watt in 1760, 1770, in these years. I mean, basically, again, it took about 100 years until really the Industrial Revolution arrived in our world and really became a reality, a social and cultural reality of our world. But in the same way as the Industrial Revolution abolished, at least to a certain extent, feudalism and aristocracy. I mean, we know we still have countries, even in Europe, who think that aristocrats are, entitled to be important people or leaders just because of their birthright. In a similar way, we have to expect that the revolution that comes now with the introduction of artificial intelligence will have not only the technological, the scientific consequences. It will not only make, a way to new discoveries and all the wonderful things. It will also not only be a major challenge in terms of, employment and the whole question that we have to ask about our own identity as humans. What are we as humans and what is our core value? It will really go to the core of the foundations of our society. And this is something that even Sam Altman understood, of course, and it would go too far to really discuss this in detail. But he talks about that it's really a radical different society that will be created or emerging on basis of his development, of the success of his company and their AI systems. He talks about that political actions that are not able to deal with these changes will, of course, be doomed as the principles of organization of our society in the same way as it has happened with the feudal and aristocratic societies in the time of the Industrial Revolution. And I thought, wow, great, finally this guy knows it, and this is really important, and maybe we have somebody who is now here able to really connect these important two realities, the development of technology and its commercial applications, as well as, of course, its political and social repercussions. And then you read further in his text, and he comes up with this wonderful text, Humanness in the Age of AI, and suddenly you get really, wow, what's going on here? He proposes a system that he believes, and it's of course one of his startup companies, that he believes will be the core to solve all these problems of AI and society and fake in AI and exploitation and unjustnesses. The only thing he wants us to do, basically each of our almost 8 billion people on this planet, is to make a scan of our retina, store it in one of his big databases, because then, wow, great, each of us, finally, we will be directly identifiable. There is no way to cheat anymore. It's totally easy to say, who made the fake photo about Donald Trump? Just look in his database. And in the beginning, I thought, this is cabaret. I couldn't just, really handle that the guy that on the one side is so super intelligent, so smart, so successful, just doesn't have at least the decency to recognize that what he is doing here is, of course, something that in so many other areas have already been proven to be most dangerous and super vulnerable. I mean, even AI had its data leaks already, and still these people believe that they are, because they are masters of technology, can also be the masters of universe. And this is what they really believe and what they are. And I think one of the really interesting things was a few weeks ago, when Italy was the first country here in Europe to ban OpenAI for several reasons. It was really like midnight. You couldn't access ChatGPT from Italy anymore. And of course, it was not the Italian police government or cybersecurity authority or whatsoever. It was OpenAI, of course, who followed the requests from the Italian government and just shut off. And then I recognized in one of the investigations about OpenAI that, I mean, I don't know, of course, if it's true, but they pretend that in their contracts, even with their big investors like Microsoft, and as you know, they put billions of dollars into the development of ChatGPT and GPT-4 and all these programs, they reserve the right to switch off the service at any time. And I mean, this is always a big discussion in the issue with AI systems. You know, is there a kill switch? I mean, we are so over-occupied by our anxiety that AI might take over as an autonomous system, that of course the kill switch for the software seems to be the most important thing. But let me be a little bit rhetoric and say what we really need is the kill switch for those people who own and operate the systems, and just because they own and operate the systems, they believe that they of course also own any other rights, including of course the rights to all our data and all these usual things that we are discussing so often. The good thing is, and also this is part of course who owns the truth, is who controls the truth. And we have from this, you know, in many ways, I think, remarkable moment that for the first time a country in Europe has switched off or banned the use of AI. And I mean, of course, we know you just go to a VPN and it's totally easy also from Italy, of course, to use ChatGPT, but officially it's different. And we have all over, in particular Europe, we have a lot of initiatives. And I think one point that we will look into very specifically within the festival is, of course, the European AI Act. I mean, the whole discussion process is super interesting when we just look at the differences, the progress in the formulations from, let's say, October, November 22 to February 23, and now to, so to say, the final drafts that are there. How this discussion has been, of course, really completely overtaken. I mean, while there was, you know, these big debates, you know, like a comet, like an asteroid, ChatGPT crashed into our society, and many things had to be rewritten. Who controls, who owns the mechanisms towards truth? I mean, I think we all know that this has been, you know, going completely out of proportion in the last decade in terms of where are the centers of development of this technology. It has basically completely shifted into the private industry. It's the big tech companies and no longer the universities who are in the lead. But there is hope, and this is one thing I think that the festival in particular will try to focus. There are so many other initiatives as well. This is just one that I'm very excited about. It's a European initiative where more than 1,000 scientists are working together in an open, transparent network with a new drafted responsible AI license. And of course, when we look at it in detail, we will find many problems and flaws there as well. But it's there. There are possibilities, and society is, so to say, has woken up. And finally, with the arrival of the discussion about artificial intelligence, I think we, for the first time, really on a large scale, on a global large scale, we are really starting to discuss digital transformation in its very depths and details. And of course, behind this is the very big question of sovereignty. Who owns the truth is therefore not only a festival about the big questions of truth and ownership. It's also a big question of what does ownership mean actually in the age of digital technologies. I mean, we know this has been changing dramatically. It is, I think, foremost also a discussion about these very important things: authority of interpretation and sovereignty. Sovereignty of individual, of societies, and of course sovereignties of nation states or even the bigger conglomerations like the European Union. There would be hundreds of other wonderful things to mention here already, of so many interesting leads that we are following to make this festival a really, truly exciting, but also deep diving excursion, expedition into these very core questions of our time. But if I would tell you everything right now, it would totally, blow up our time schedule, and I don't want to spoil everything. So think about joining us at the festival or using now the opportunity to address questions to Crystal and me on our channels here. We are now going, as usual, to switch off the YouTube channel so that you can go into, is it Zoom? Zoom, yes. Change into Zoom, sorry, where we are, of course, available for further questions and discussions. Thank you very much for your attention.